For decades now, violence against women has not just existed, it has carried on, repeated itself across cities, across generations, across ages. It has never been limited to a certain kind of woman, a certain place, or a certain time. And yet, what feels even more disturbing today is not just that it continues, but how it is changing. The increasing number of cases involving minors, young girls, children, forces a question that cannot be ignored. What kind of mindset looks at a child and sees them as an object of desire? What kind of conditioning allows this to exist? Because this is no longer something distant. Every single day there is another headline, another case, another story that feels horrifyingly familiar. And almost every time, the conversation shifts in a way that quietly moves attention away from the act itself to everything around it. As if the responsibility must always trace its way back to the victim. As if the focus must always remain on what could have been done differently by the one who suffered. Rarely do we pause and ask the more difficult question. Who are these men? What enables them? And why do so many of them act with the confidence that they will get away with it? Because it is not just the violence. It is what follows it. The brutality, the attempt to erase evidence, the murders that follow, often driven by a belief that consequences can be delayed, reduced, or avoided. And somewhere in all of this, another reality quietly exists. The constant anxiety families of girls live with, the silent calculations, the quiet relief when a daughter returns home safely at the end of each day. Something so normal and basic has become a blessing in today's time. Welcome to the inner room. Today we talk about a system that struggles between what is legal and what is driven by power, influence, and access. Let's look at some of the most horrific cases, not just over the years, but across decades. What happened, what followed, and where they stand today. Because even in 2026, it feels like the system struggles to deliver real consequences. And the gap between law and justice still remains. In 1972, a young tribal girl known as Mathura, estimated to be around 14 to 16 years old, was raped inside a police station by two policemen. The case exposed a serious failure of institutional accountability. In 1979, the Supreme Court acquitted the accused, citing lack of physical resistance and interpreting her silence as consent, effectively shifting the burden onto the victim. The judgment triggered nationwide protests led by lawyers and women's rights activists who challenged the reasoning of the court. This led to the 1983 Amendment of Rape Laws in India, where custodial crimes were recognized and the burden of proof in such cases were shifted onto the accused. However, despite the legal reform that followed, the accused themselves were never punished, raising a lasting question about whether systematic change truly delivers justice to the individual. In 2002, Bilkis Bano, a 21-year-old woman who was 5 months pregnant, was raped during the Gujarat riots, and several members of her family, including her 3-year-old daughter, were killed. The case was marked by delays, intimidation, and attempts to suppress evidence, forcing her to approach the Supreme Court for intervention. The Supreme Court later transferred the trial out of Gujarat to ensure a fair investigation. In 2008, 11 men were convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. Years later, the court also directed compensation, acknowledging both the brutality of the crime and the failure of the system in its early stages. However, in 2022, those same convicts were released under remission by the state government. Reports showed they were publicly welcomed after their release. The decision triggered nationwide outrage and raised serious questions about remission policies, state discretion, and whether justice once delivered can be reversed. In 1996, Priyadarshini Mattoo, a 25-year-old law student, was stalked by Santosh Kumar Singh, the son of a senior police officer. Despite repeated complaints of harassment, no effective action was taken, highlighting early signs of systematic lapse and the influence of power. She was raped and murdered in her home. In 1999, the trial court acquitted the accused due to lack of evidence, despite expressing strong suspicion about his involvement, pointing directly to a failure in investigation and evidence collection. The case drew widespread public attention and criticism of how influence can impact due process. In 2006, the Delhi High Court overturned the acquittal, convicted him, and awarded the death sentence, which was later reduced to life imprisonment by the Supreme Court in 2010. The case continues to be referenced as an example of delayed justice, flawed investigation, and the role of power in shaping outcomes. In 1999, Jessica Lal, a 34-year-old model and aspiring actor, was bartending at a private party in Delhi when she was shot dead for refusing to serve alcohol past closing hours. The accused Manu Sharma was the son of a powerful politician, and the case quickly drew attention to the role of influence in criminal proceedings. In 2006, the trial court acquitted all the accused due to lack of evidence, as several key witnesses turned hostile during the trial. The verdict led to massive public outrage and media attention, becoming one of the earliest cases where public pressure played a visible role in reopening a case. Later that same year, the Delhi High Court overturned the acquittal and convicted Manu Sharma, sentencing him to life imprisonment. In 2020, he was released from prison on parole. The case highlighted issues of witness intimidation, the vulnerability of trials to influence, and the extent to which public intervention becomes necessary for justice to be delivered. In 2012, a 23-year-old physiotherapy student, widely known as Nirbhaya, was brutally assaulted in a moving bus in Delhi by multiple men. Later, 6 people were arrested in connection with the case, one of whom was a juvenile at the time. The violence was extreme and left her with severe internal injuries, including extensive damage to her organs. She was initially treated in Delhi and later airlifted to Singapore for advanced medical care, where she succumbed to her injuries. The incident triggered nationwide protests, with thousands taking to the streets demanding stricter laws, faster trials, and stronger accountability. In response, the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 2013 was introduced, expanding the definition of sexual offences and increasing punishments. In 2013, 4 adult accused were convicted and sentenced to death. One accused, being a juvenile, was released after serving 3 years under the juvenile justice law, raising a difficult question. Can the severity of a crime ever outweigh the protection of age? Another accused died in custody before the trial could reach its conclusion. The death sentences were carried out in 2020, nearly 8 years after the crime, despite fast-track proceedings and intense public pressure, raising continued questions about the speed and effectiveness of justice. In 2022, Ankita Bhandari, a 19-year-old from Uttarakhand, was killed after resisting pressure to provide special services at a resort where she worked. The main accused, Pulkit Arya, owned the resort and is the son of a senior BJP leader, bringing immediate attention to the role of power and influence in the case. Investigations revealed that Ankita had been facing sustained pressure from the accused. She was later pushed into a canal, leading to her death. The incident sparked widespread public outrage and protests, with demands for accountability and a fair investigation. The accused were arrested soon after. On May 30th, 2025, they were sentenced to life imprisonment. The case has also been probed by the CBI, raising continued questions about the role of influence, the initial handling of the investigation, and whether justice was delayed before it was delivered. In 2024, a 31-year-old postgraduate doctor was assaulted and murdered inside Arjikar Medical College in Kolkata during her duty hours, within a space meant to be safe. Her body was found in a seminar room in a semi-nude condition with multiple injuries across her body, including her face and neck, indicating a violent attack. The post-mortem findings confirmed sexual assault along with strangulation as the cause of death. The main accused, Sanjay Roy, a civic volunteer associated with Kolkata police, was arrested within a day. He was later convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment in 2025. However, concerns began almost immediately. The hospital initially informed the family that it was a suicide. The Kolkata High Court later transferred the investigation to the CBI, stating that the initial police probe did not inspire confidence. Allegations of delays in filing the FIR, possible evidence tampering, and the involvement of hospital authorities and police officials raised serious questions about how the case was handled. The incident triggered nationwide protests, strike by doctors, and widespread public outrage, with many questioning whether the full truth had been uncovered and whether all those responsible had been held accountable. Even after the conviction, the case continues to raise a larger question. Was this justice, or just the closest version of it that the system could deliver? From 1972 to 2026, more than 5 decades, and yet the pattern remains disturbingly familiar. In too many of these cases, the accused come from powerful political backgrounds, from families that are meant to uphold the law, not exploit it. And that raises a deeper question. What happens when those closest to power begin to misuse it? Because then it is not just the crime that breaks trust. It is the system around it. A system where laws can be stretched, evidence can be questioned, cases can be delayed, and outcomes can keep shifting. And through it all, the victims and their families continue to suffer. First at the hands of the crime, and then within the system meant to protect them. And what about the verdicts that keep changing? From death sentences to life imprisonment, to bail, parole, and eventual release. Why does justice appear so uncertain, where decisions are repeatedly revisited and altered? Why are there so many avenues for the one who committed the crime and so few for the victims who are left to live with the consequences? These are just the cases that come to light. There are countless others that never do. And beyond that, the everyday reality of harassment, inappropriate touch, and violation in public spaces, in transport, even in places meant to feel safe. It just doesn't stop. It happens every single day. Different years, different cities, different outcomes, but the same underlying pattern. Delay, denial, influence. And a system that tends to act only when the consequences are already permanent. We speak of strict laws. We speak of reforms, but conviction rates remain low. Cases stretch for years, investigations falter, bail, parole, remission, legal provisions meant to balance justice often begin to blur its meaning. And somewhere between process and delay, the certainty of consequences begin to weaken. Because at this point, it is not just about crime. It is about mindset. A mindset that objectifies, dehumanizes, and believes it can violate and still escape. A mindset that is shaped, enabled, and tolerated over time. And even in conversations with men, there is a clear recognition that the problem is not just the crime, but how lightly it is punished. And so, the question is no longer whether laws exist. They do. The question is, why do they fail to act in time? Why does justice still depend on outrage? Why does it still feel like the system moves only after something irreversible has already happened? And after all these decades, after all these cases, after every protest, every reform, every promise, what exactly has changed?